Greetings everybody, my name is Mike, and I love maps. I'm here again today with another video on how to draw. This time it's how to draw trees for your maps. Really appreciate all the support I got last time, so here we go with another one. Once again, you want to have a clear area, and you want to start with a fresh sheet of paper. I prefer cardstock. And draw yourself a little circle or other shape that will be your limitations for the day. These are going to be exercises, not an actual full map. I'll be using my favorite pen again, once again, the Pigma Microns with archival ink. I'll be using the 8, the 2, and I think you guys can still read it, but the much loved number 1. In case you guys are wondering, for those who watched the last video, yes, I am arting again today with Rode. Rode has decided to hang out in his blanket fort. That's where he loves to live. Right now he's wondering why Dad is talking to nobody in particular. That happens a bit. Yeah, buddy, I know. It's a rough life. Well, now that I've shown the obligatory dog picture and distracted you guys, let's get back to arting. I've already done some examples. These are the 3 types that I normally use. This one I refer to just as pine trees. It's pretty detailed and is usually good for offering really good texture and at the same time adding depth. This is what I call the fluffy trees, very much more your deciduous kind of trees. These are much easier to do and can cover really great big areas without having to be too detailed. And then these are the classic Tolkien trees, or very close to them, or my version of them. They're the style done by Pauline Baynes. She was the artist who did all of the maps for Tolkien and C.S. Lewis, as well as the illustrations for those books, at least for Chronicles of Narnia. Lived to 2008. Anyway, if you guys are doing any kind of classic fantasy map, those are probably the trees that inspired you. At least they inspired me. I really loved her maps. In any case, let's get started. I apologize if the angle is a little bit difficult to see, but we'll be starting with the number 2 pen. Now, I've done a lot of detail on the examples, but I'm just going to do the simplest I can for these. So, it's a lot of work doing these textures. Get the shadow out of the way. Now, for these trees, it's really organic. Just make a squiggly line, alright? And then come back down and do another squiggly line. And squiggle it down the bottom. That's all there is to it. It's very organic, kind of like a jagged electric tree drop. There's no rhyme or reason. Remember, trees look good on a map because we want them to look organic, or so I'm told. There you go. Nothing particularly special. That one in the middle is extra shaggy. I guess he's a Douglas fir or something. Then the next bit, I know it's hard for you guys to see. Let me see if I can change that angle so there's less shadow. No, that only helped the shadow. That's a little better. Alright. The next thing is just simply making a little tree stump. Or I should say the trunk. It's not a stump until you cut it off. I do that for every tree where I can see the base. As you can see up here, I overlapped a little bit. Because that's what happens in a view of a forest. You don't need to make every individual tree completely visible. Already that looks like a pretty good forest. Now, like we talked about with the mountains before, you want to give them a base, something to stand on. Because it's just white paper in the middle of nowhere until the trees have something to stand on. And don't ask me why it actually helps it look better. It just does. At least I think so. In any case, there you go. Now, if you just like that and don't want to go any further, there you've got it. You've got some shaggy pine trees, and they're not half bad. But I like to go a little further and add some depth. So I'm going to be using my number 8 pen. Number 8 is the thickest point I own in my microns. I use other thicker pens for like larger areas. As you can see, it's a pretty substantial tip compared to the number 2, if the shadow doesn't ruin it. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to take this tip and I'm going to fill in a thicker jag. If the pen will give me some ink. That's what happens when you need. There you go. A little jagged line. Present a shadow. You can just do that for all your trees. And some of you are going, God, why would I do that? And I can just do it in a computer and just stamp them all over. Well, a lot of people like the hand-drawn look, and for me, when I'm doing my maps, there's a quality that comes across that is more warm and, I don't know, archaic, inviting, mysterious than the repeated pattern of a computer. We may not be able to describe what that quality is, but we can see it. Our brain goes, oh, that's exactly the same as everything else. This feels more organic, this feels more natural, and to me it feels more good. Now, you notice I put the shadow all on one side. I talked about shadow in my last video, but this time I wanted to show you guys something over here. It's a little shadow guide. You can put it on your paper to help you, or you can put a piece of scrap paper while you're doing your maps if you just want to get right into it. It's a good way to figure out where you want your shadows to be. Now, it was arbitrary whether I picked this side or this side. But the idea is that you want to color in the side that you want your shadow to be on. That way you have a point of reference to go, okay, that is where the shadow should be. It's this line, and this line. Or on a circle, it's like all the way to here because it's a really dark shadow, or maybe not so much on this one. The idea is that this little guide will, when you're going through these weird organic shapes, remind you where your shadow should be, as opposed to, ah crap, I put the shadow on the wrong end and that's all weird now. Anyway, just a suggestion. Alright. Go back to finishing these trees. Now there's not much left to them. Put my pen away. As you can see, these trees are pretty much ready to rock and roll. But I like to add just that final bit of detail. This time I'm using my number 1. It's about half the size of the number 2. And I like to add just a little bit of texture. I like using diagonal lines. They're simple, they're quick to repeat, and they can imply so much, either lighting or, as I said, texture. It feels like they're more like conifers now. And then finally, while I've still got this pen in my hand, just adding a little bit more to the forest floor, giving, the ground some texture. Because forests are rarely ever, any natural forest I've ever been in has never been pristine. It's a rocky place, either mounds of leaves or there's undergrowth. It's just, these are all little things to offer that suggestion. Obviously, there are some people who are super talented who can get in there and draw every leaf on every plant. I've seen it on the internet. Blows my mind. But this is for us, for a practical map. And when our minds look at something, or when our minds translate something they're looking at, especially if it's a symbol that carries more weight, it draws in on our experiences and it makes us infer and project things that may not even be there. That's why little shadow techniques work. It's why you can see a smiley face in the clouds. Your mind is constantly trying to make something out of what it's seeing. Anyway, I'll tilt that a little bit. There you are, your little trees. Apologize for the steepness of the angle. I'm working on getting a better rig or a tripod. but I wanted to get another video out for you guys. Strike while the iron is hot. Finished, not perfect. Now these trees, the fluffy white ones, are trees I use for large areas, or when I'm just, they have a certain look to them, and they're fun, and they're pretty easy. They almost look like scrambled eggs. So it really doesn't matter where you start or where you're going. I'll go ahead and change out pens again, just to be consistent. This is number 2. Once again, try and remove myself from the shadow. This one, you just want to make the most squiggly little line you can. Doesn't even matter where you go, really. You're trying to emulate the feeling of leaves. And a lot of people make a no-no. Probably people who are trees, they're like, oh, well, something like this. There's nothing wrong with that tree. Absolutely nothing wrong. If you like trees that way, groovy. I don't. It reminds me of broccoli or a piece of popcorn. This, on the other hand, feels more organic. It feels more like some kind of canopy. Once again, I'm not going to fill in the whole space. I just wanted to give you guys enough to go on. Now these trees, I just draw lines down. Bring that closer to you guys so you see it. I just draw lines down to infer tree trunks straight down. And I only put them on one side, usually the shadow side. Okay? Or rather, if you were looking at it, where you would see trees and where the other trees would be blocked. The last thing I do before I switch up pens is I add basically texture to the canopy as though it's other trees, bumping for height and different. And getting ahead of myself. Yeah, there you go. Adding a little bit of texture. Where is the forest floor? I also do it on the side without the tree trunk showing, because it helps define the space. Many times when we're looking at something, we don't realize that, like in a meme or a piece of illustrated or you know what I'm talking about, guys. A piece of art online. You add a shadow to things so you can see it. Anyway, these are ready to rock and roll, but I like shadow, so we're going to do that again. Once again, getting out the number 8, which probably needs to be replaced. And we're going to, referencing our shadow guide, only do this side and this side. And it's not all of it, just enough of a suggestion that there's, more going on here. Adds a layer of depth. Try and ride the contours a little bit. Maybe even go up here into the canopy. Offer a little suggestion. Experiment, try it out. Even just drawing a straight line with the pen, the thick pen, can be enough of a contrast just to infer something. In the immortal words of Bob Ross, there are no mistakes, only happy accidents. And luckily I got it right that time. Okay. Last but not least, I didn't do it this last forest, but I'll do it here. Think about adding some embellishments, you know. Think about adding things that would be on the edge of the forest. Maybe birds. You often see depictions of things at sea when people are trying to show that, you know, there's a sea monster or something, you know, weird lurking out there. Forests are a mysterious place too. They deserve embellishment. Maybe bad deer embellishment, I don't know. Anyway, you get the idea. Okay. Last but not least, the classic Tolkien trees, or the Pauline Baynes trees. Sorry, Pauline Baynes. These are really simple. I'm only going to do a few of them. I'm going to stick with my number one today, because it seems to be working with the best ink. So, let's see. All you do is make a teardrop. The trick with these trees is that you kind of want to figure out where the most southern edge of your forest is going to be, because they're generally really tight. And unless you want to draw a lot of little stumps to fill in the gaps, I keep calling them stumps, little trunks. The beauty of these trees is they kind of overlap like fish scales, or dragon scales, is what I should say. There you go. Once again, you can give the forest definition. Make sure that the leading edge gets trunks and they have a place to stand on. And then you just take your pen, darken one little semicircle, just that little edge, as I'm doing right here. Kind of like this, using our little shade chart. It was reading the maps of Tolkien by Mrs. Baynes that inspired me to want to do this. And I know I can't be the only one. It's hard sometimes. You look at a picture, or you look at a map or a drawing, and you think, how do they do that? And it's hard just to break down the process. But I hope that some of the stuff I've done here helps break down that process. I guess the last thing I'll say about these Baynes trees is that they kind of sometimes need a little extra definition. So a little rolling hill or something right here helps them stick out. Anyway, there you have it. Those are my 3 versions of trees. Hopefully this video wasn't too long. Really appreciate all your support, guys. So does Road. If you like my stuff, please let me know in the comments, and also share it and subscribe to my channel, and I hope to put out new videos very soon. Thanks for watching. Keep drawing.